Welcome back to Welsh Miniature Board Gamer, and this is the start of a new series for me, an oldie paints the oldies. So yeah, we're going to paint up some of the old miniatures that are in my collection, and we're going to start off with this Partha wizard. So we're going to use some cork brown, and we're going to mix this in with some Vallejo light flesh to get something a little bit sort of paler than the human sort of skin tones that I usually use. So we're going to make sure to cover the face, the hands, the ears, get a nice coverage on everything before we move on. Now the thing about painting some of these older miniatures, because these are obviously metal, I would say always use a decent quality primer. So I have used the Vallejo brush on primer. That's why he's this funny yellowish green colour, because this is the colour that I have. But yeah, use a good quality primer because they're metal. You know, paint will chip easier on metal miniatures than they will on plastic miniatures, etc. So you're going to want to use a decent primer. And when you're finished, of course, coat them with a matte varnish. So next we go over with just the cork brown. Now we're going to use this to colour the hair, because I'm thinking it's going to have sort of a goldeny blonde tone to the hair. So why I picked this miniature is I put up a poll on my community page for YouTube, and this was the miniature that was voted by my viewers. So thank you for picking this miniature. Quite an interesting miniature to paint up. I don't usually paint elves. I've got no real good feelings or affection for elves in any of the games, so yeah, it's something a bit different for me. I don't generally gravitate towards them, so painting something a bit more feminine, sort of you know, delicate boned, etc., is quite unusual for me. I usually paint up, you know, dwarves, orcs, etc., which have got much more muscular faces and features, etc. So I'm making sure I hit all of the spots of the hair of this, because I really don't want this bright undercoat to show through. So next, with Vallejo colour yellow olive, we're going to use this to paint up the tunic that he has. You know, he's an elf, so I think, you know, they have a slight affinity towards green. I'm going to try and paint this up how I would have more in sort of the 80s style, so, you know, it's an elf magic user, so I'm thinking sort of kind of bright colours, kind of old GW colour, you know, scheme, where everything was really bright, you know, for wizards, etc. So yeah, that's what I'm going to try and go for and see how I go. So again, I want to make sure that I cover up all of our primer, because it is a very bright, kind of vile colour actually, but yeah, it's a good primer to use just to give us a nice base to start from. So I'm trying not to hit anything that I've already painted. I don't worry if I hit something that I haven't painted yet, because I obviously will be putting another layer of paint over the top, so it doesn't matter so much there. But, you know, if I've painted it, I don't really want to have to come back and tidy up if I can absolutely help it. So, obviously, I give it a good look, see what I want to do next on the miniature, and we pick the flat brown. So this is kind of my default brown that I use. It's a nice dark colour brown, so I'm going to put it on the trousers just to make it, you know, pop from the green, you know, very earthy tones again, green and brown, to sort of work with the fact that it is an elf, and those colours really sort of suit it, I think. Although it's a wizard, I do think, you know, they've still got this sort of natural affinity to nature, etc. So that's the sort of colours I'm going with. So next we get some sepia wash. This is a Vallejo sepia wash, but any old sepia wash will do. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it, so it's a little bit more, even more fluid. And then I'm going to hit this all over the skin. Now the sepia wash, I don't usually use sepia wash on skin. I usually use army painted flesh tone, but because this is an elf, figure sort of sepia wash might work a little bit better to bring down the really dark tones, you know, bring them up a little bit so they're not quite so overpowering, etc. And it works pretty good on pale skin. And then I'll, you know, just come along with the base color that we mixed up with the light flesh and the cork brown, and I just pick out, you know, a few details, you know, on the bridge of the nose, the tip of the nose, you know, the cheeks, etc., just to bring back some of the emphasis on the raised areas of skin. So we don't really want to darken the complete skin tone down, we just wanted to fill in the shadows, etc. So this will bring back the original colour. Now don't go overboard with this, just, you know, the raised areas on the knuckles, etc. So next we have Sand Golem Speed Paint from Army Painter. I love this colour, it's really good. And I'm going to be using this on the hair to give it some depth, and it just adds just some warm tones to it. It's kind of like a gingerish colour, or a gingerish colour, I would say. But yeah, it's really nice colour, really warm, golden colour. So I like this for a lot of the hair tones, for this sort of, you know, if I'm going for a tone that I want it to be warm, but not too blonde, this is what I'll use instead of, you know, making it like an ash blonde or something. You know, this is quite a browny blonde, or a dirty blonde, if you will. So next we have Blue Grey Pale from Vallejo. Now this is the colour that I use often instead of white if I want a tunic, but not actually have it be white. I often use the blue grey because it kind of reads as white even though it's not. So then you can hit it with something tonally or, you know, brighter, etc. on top of this colour, and you can leave this as sort of your mid-tone. So if you put a wash and then, sorry, if you do this blue tone and then a wash, and then you wanted to do a white over with a mix with the blue tone, you can get a really good effect. So it's about time I tell you about the miniature that we're painting. So this miniature is a Partha miniature. It's called the Elf Magic User with Magic Items. Very catchy. I believe it was made in 1989. I looked through the old catalogues, and that was when the first saw this miniature being shown, so I'm pretty sure about that. So Partha as a company was really quite a big company during its time. It's kind of gone now, but kind of not, and I'll come to that now in a minute. So in the early 80s it was really big, and it was that big that it used to distribute by Citadel in the UK. So the Partha miniatures were actually distributed through Citadel back in the days, if you could believe that, when Citadel actually did work for other companies. So they did that in the UK, and in return Partha distributed for Citadel in America. So yeah, it was kind of a, you know, a collaboration between the two that they used to distribute for the other company in, you know, their other company. It was founded in 1975, which is a very good year. It was the year I was born. But it changed ownership to FASA in 1998, and then over to WizKids. So now it is actually sort of known by the rebrand of Iron Wind Metals, and it still they still make some of these miniatures you can find here, or you know, of this era on their website, which is really cool. So you can buy some of the oldie miniatures. Now you can't buy this one, I don't think, because this was originally made for the TSR Advanced D&D line, which obviously the rights to it has kind of been lost, so I think they've lost the rights to print these, I keep saying print, to make these miniatures, I would imagine. So that's why you can't find this particular miniature there anymore. However, you can find an awful lot of really interesting ones, so yeah, definitely go check them out. So Iron Wind Metals. So I found this back in the day, the heady days. So I would have found it probably around the year it was released. I used to go to a little model shop in Cardiff, which is my nearest big city, and also the capital of Wales. And there I used to spend sort of my birthday or Christmas money, etc. So I used to go a couple of times a year to this store, and it was a magical little place, you know, like a little grotto of a shop, you know, with miniatures just sort of hidden away everywhere. You could even buy loose miniatures that people have returned that didn't want, etc., or returns, you know, that sort of thing. It's a really cool little place that used to be a bit of a magical place for me to visit as my younger self. So this guy, I think he came in a 2-pack originally when I bought him. I think I still have the female version of this, which I will have to show you at some point. Maybe I'll put a picture up somewhere. But I painted her up not so long ago, you know, maybe a couple of years back now, but still not so long ago in the scheme of things. But this is the first time I've actually got around to painting this miniature, so it's quite a fun thing. But yeah, I remember I picked him up in this 2-pack with the female, and yeah, I think it was something like 50p back in the day when miniatures were that cheap. And yeah, you had 2 of them, and the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons trademark put on top of it. So yeah, I hate to think how much they would cost now if you had all of those things, 2 miniatures in a blister pack with the D&D trademark put on top of it. Yeah, you're talking more than 50p. But yeah, back in the day, that was how much it was. So that's pretty much my rundown of the actual miniature. Yeah, down memory lane of picking this guy up. So I've decided to go back, and using that same flat brown, I'm going to paint up the boots. I'm not going to paint the fringe of the boot or the fold of the boot, just the actual boots, because yeah, you know, I want it to be brown. It may not end up being this brown, but I can use it as a base colour to work from. We can make it look different to the trousers as we go on. This won't look exactly the same as long as we, you know, put this base tone down, and then we can use washes and higher different contrast paints, for example, to make the boots stand out from the trousers. While I'm here, I may as well paint the base in the same flat brown. Now I know I'm going to be putting base flocks, etc. down on the base, but I'd rather have this brown underneath just in case any comes off. I'd rather see brown than grey underneath, because that wouldn't look particularly natural if I'm going for a grassy colour. So going back to that blue-grey that we used earlier on the sleeves, I'm going to be doing the fringe or the turnover of the boots in this colour. You know, give him a bit of flash. You know, this elf deserves it. So I'm going to do the fold of his boot in this colour to stand out. So then we got this Army Painter Dark Wood Speed Paint. So I'm going to do the trousers in this colour. I'm going to put it on pretty thick, to be honest. I'll knock it back somewhat with some highlights after. But for now, I want to make the trousers look completely different to the boots. So this is how I'm going to do that. So yeah, I use it as a wash more than a speed paint. So I'm going back to the flat brown again, because that is the thing I've been using originally, and I'm going to be using this to sort of make a highlight for the leggings that he's wearing. So I'm going to hit the knee where the quad muscles at the front of his legs are stretching the trousers a little bit. You know, I'm going to hit those sort of spots, the raised spots and the flattened spots, so it makes it look a little bit more alive. So then we're going to move over to the Army Painter Alien Purple. So this is our first sort of non-natural colour, if I can say that, that we're going to use on these I don't even know what you would call them. They're not really shoulder guards. I'm not sure what they are. He's got like these little wing things that stick out on his top, which we'll paint them in purple because he's a magic user, and purple, you know, back in the day denoted magic users for the old miniatures, etc. So we're going to do that for these shoulder pieces, and we're also going to use them for, he's got these like arm greaves almost. They don't look like armor, they look more like fashion accessories, but we're going to do those in the same color because, you know, this looks like a guy who sort of bought his outfit all in one and didn't hodgepodge put it all together. So there, Citadel Drakenhof Nightshade. Well, that's a name, you know. So we're going to use that. Don't use many Citadel things, but I do still have a few washes lying around. And I'm going to use this quite watered down to brush over the shirt, etc. Just to give it some of the shadows, you know, because there is a lot of folds in his tunic sleeves. So we want to make them, you know, stand out from the actual highlights, etc. So I'm going to hit those with quite a watered down wash. So we're going to do the same with those little turnovers that he has on his boots. Next we got blue-grey pale. So with our blue-grey pale Vallejo colour, we're going to come back in and sort of hit the highlights of the shirt and those turnovers on his boots to get some nice highlight to our shaded areas, because we've dulled it down a little bit with the Drakenhof wash, etc. So hitting all the raised parts of the sleeves, we're going to paint those up. So we're going to clean up the boots as well, those turnovers that we're talking about, just to get them nice and clean as well, and return them back to their original colour, so we don't have too many blotchy, you know, shade, etc. Like I said, I often use this as my kind of white but not white sort of colour often. It works quite well, you know, if you need somewhere to go with making it even brighter, etc. You could keep adding a lighter grey or a white to this mixture and it'll keep knocking it up closer to the white, so you can keep moving that way if you wanted to. So Army Painter, Army Green. So this is, yeah, a brighter colour than that dark green that we had for his tunic. So with this lighter colour, we're going to hit sort of his pecs and any area that looks like it's slightly raised, or, you know, there's a raised fold in the tunic, etc. That's what we're going to try and do. Also where the fabric is stretched over the back of him, so it's where the light would naturally kind of hit. I'm going to draw in like little bits of abs, so, you know, they're stretching the fabric a little bit, so he's yeah, so it makes it look like there is a form under the fabric. So there we go to Vallejo model colour brass. So this is kind of my gold colour that I'm going to be using. It's not 100% gold, and it's not really brass either, but it's closer to gold, I would say, than brass. Brass isn't quite like this colour, but I'm going to use this anyway to paint up the knife, sword, whatever you want to call it. I want to make sure that I get a nice coat on this, but making sure I don't hit anything that I've already painted. Obviously, that would be a pain because we've already highlighted a lot. Then we're going to do this, I don't know what to call this end piece on his staff. Sort of I don't know, I'm not really sure what it is, but yeah, he's got this ornamental head on his staff. So I like this colour. It's not too gold, you know, it doesn't show up as really rich gold, it's kind of muted and I like it. He's also got this torque around his head, or head, I don't know, headband, if you want. Also, he has this quite elaborate looking belt, which I'll also hit with this colour to make it look, you know, like he has some riches because he is an elf. Now we're coming with the Army Painter Grimoire purple. So these colours I'm going to work now. Yeah, I'm just noticing how that blade is meant to fit into this tiny scabbard. That's what I was trying to point out. So I went around and hit all those purple areas, just getting some raised paint done. So that was Basalt Grey. I have trouble saying that every time. We're going to paint the staff wood with this colour. So, you know, I'm thinking it's, you know, it's some magical wood or something, or, you know, some weird exotic tree with grey wood. Then with the Vallejo model colour black, which is my go-to colour for sort of blacks because it is such a good black. I'm going to paint up the leather scabbard he has at the side, that weird little scabbard, which how that huge knife fits into it boggles my mind, but he is a magician, so maybe he can make his knife shrink or the scabbard grow. Who knows? But yeah, we're going to paint it up that colour. So then we have Pale Sand by Vallejo. So Pale Sand is a really nice sort of off-white that we're going to use. Now we're going to use this very carefully to paint these little, he's got like little bags hanging from his staff. Maybe they've got, I don't know, ingredients maybe for his spells, or maybe they are teeth that he's collected from his foes. Who knows? But he has little bags hanging from his staff. So yeah, we're going to paint those up in that colour. So watered down PVA. So this is for our basin mixture. We're going to just paint it over, if I manage to get it on camera so you can actually see. That's what I'm doing, is I'm painting it all around over that earthy brown. Try not to get anything on his feet, because if I do, it's going to end up sinking his feet into the ground, which we really don't want. I did also use my texture paint to give some texture on the base, you know, and hide that sort of lip that it has on these old miniatures. And then I just dip him into my chosen basin flock. Now I can't really tell you what it is because it's such a mix of old stuff that I couldn't tell you. So back to the miniature, we get our sepia wash again, the Vallejo one that we used on his skin. Now we're going to use this to give some sort of interest to the weapon. At the moment it's a bit flat, so we want to add some tone to our sword or our gold part. So anything that's gold will give a nice wash of this sepia colour, and it really does add a lot of character to this blade, etc. I'm really quite happy with how this is turning out. So if I get any sepia anywhere that I don't want it, I just quickly try and clean it off with a damp brush, and we can carry on. So I'm also going to put some sepia over the little bags that he has on his staff, just to dull them down a little bit, make them look like they have been out in the elements and they aren't brand new white cloth. So back to the Army Painter Green. So this Army Painter Green, we're going to paint the weird little, like, I don't know what it is. It's like he's got some green tassels hanging from his staff also, so we're going to paint those up this green to tie it in with, you know, his outfit, etc. We don't want to add a new colour here because it might just overwhelm everything if we add too many more colours. So dark sea blue, a really nice colour. It's kind of a bluey green colour. It's a really interesting colour. I use it quite a bit, and this is what I'm going to use to go over the scabbard and the little loop that he's got the scabbard hanging from, keeping again away from the recesses so that we got some interest. Then Army Painter Fur Brown, so we're going to use this. It's a lighter brown than we've used previously, so that we can give some nice sort of highlight colours on the boots, you know, to make them look different to the pants, etc., or trousers, leggings, whatever you want to call his trousers. But yeah, this is going to make it look marginally different to the trousers and give the boots some of their own little character without drawing them too far away. So then we go back to the model Vallejo model colour black, and this is the colour I do my bases with. So I'll just go around and do the rims, because this is my finishing touch. I always do black rims. You can do whatever you want, but I think it makes it look really kind of neat and tidy. And that's it finished. So what do you think? Do you like him? Do you think I've done him as proud? You know, this old guy from 1989. Probably older than a lot of my viewers, but yeah, I enjoyed painting him. I love the simplicity of some of these old metal miniatures. You know, it was back in the day when people seemed to know that you wanted to paint them, so they would actually not go too crazy with detail, etc. As you can see, the head is way bigger than it should be if it was in size and proportion, but you know, it was built specifically for painters to paint, and I love that. I really miss these sort of metal miniatures, and I'm enjoying going back over some of my older ones. So I will pull up a new poll once this video does come out, actually probably before this video comes out, so I got another one to paint. So if you get voting down below, you will get to see what I managed to paint up next. Thank you for voting, it means a lot to me. So I'm going to say, you know, leave likes if you want, if you liked it. If you want to see more, subscribe, and you'll see more from me in the future. I release at the moment every Monday. I will try and get back to releasing twice a week, but at the moment, school holidays, it's just every Monday. With that, if you want to leave a comment, you can leave comments, and I do reply to every single comment. I do try to give my, you know, best replies to everything. So, you know, leave your comments down below. But until next time, I'm going to have to say goodbye from me, Welsh Miniature Board Gamer.